Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Here's a saying that all but the most partisan among us are tired of hearing. This is the most important election in American history. This is the most important election in your lifetime. Now, those are somewhat different statements. For anyone who says this is the most important election in history, you are so wrong. You are embarrassing yourself. Really, this is more important than the election of George Washington. This is more important than the election that caused the Civil War that almost split this country apart and Abraham Lincoln ended slavery. We just got the freedom for 20% of our population that was previously enslaved in that election. But yeah, this one's probably more important. Who the hell thinks like that? No one really believes that. The reason why people say that is because they want you to be so scared that you go vote for their team, because they think that they're talking to the members of their team. So Sean Hannity will say this because he knows he's talking to the partisan members of Team Red. It's the most important election in your lifetime. And I like Sean Hannity. I've met him a couple times. He's been super nice to me. I think he runs a great show. He's a great broadcaster. I agree with him politically about 60% of the time. But I've seen him with my own eyes and heard him with my own ears say that in pretty much every presidential election cycle since I've been paying attention in talk radio. And the first time I really paid attention was 2004. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, now 24. I have covered professionally, not just as an adult, but as a talk radio host. This will be my 6th presidential election cycle. Tired of hearing this, man. I've heard it every single one. And if you're right about this time, then I want to hear you say, I'm sorry, I said that before. I was wrong previously. I was wrong in 2004 and 2008 and 2012 and 2016 and 2020. No, for real this time, this is the most important election in our lifetime. And even when you talk about the most important election in our lifetime, is it? Really? How important? How would your life? Here, let me put you through this, because I mean, my talk radio career started with the first election. I was just dumbfounded at how different it is when you're covering it versus if you're one of the voters out there and you have a normal job where you go do something else for 8 hours a day, and then you just try and catch up on the evenings or on your breaks, or mess around on your phone while you're walking around. But we had to field calls on the talk radio show I was on in 2004, and I used to have a fun little trick. Someone would call in and they would say, I'm voting for John Kerry over George W. Bush, and I would ask the same question as if someone said, I'm voting for George W. Bush over John Kerry. I would say, on which policy do they disagree that you're basing your decision? Because I was blown away at how similar the two guys were. The two guys had exact same ideas for the budget. They had no plans on balancing it. George W. Bush took a balanced budget and blew it. Started some wars. He expanded Medicare and Medicaid. He doubled the size and spending of the Department of Education. He had no intention of balancing the budget, and he wasn't going to try for 5 seconds. John Kerry, exact same thing. George W. Bush wanted to have us in 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for as far as the eye could see, with no real end in sight. John Kerry, same thing. Well, what about all the spending on the war, the $79 billion? Well, I voted against it before I voted for it, or something like that, or maybe it was backwards. But there wasn't a whole lot of daylight. Aside from a couple things like, I don't know, abortion, nothing. There was nothing that was different. How about this? Very little for the correctersons out there. But tell me, Republican or Democrat listening right now, how different would your life have been if John Kerry had won that election in 2004 versus George W. Bush? What happened in that 4-year span that if only that hadn't happened, your life would be so much better or so much worse? See, this is an infection on both Team Red and Team Blue. And for the truly independent ones out there, I realize a lot of people out there are either Team Red or Team Blue. They just say they're independent so they don't have to field criticism of their team. It's intellectual sloth, but I understand why you do it. But this is reason number 5,912. I know I'm not on either one of your teams, because you will not hear me say that. I know you haven't known me that long, but remember this show. Remember what I'm saying today, right now, on May 6th. If you ever hear me say, this is the most important election in your lifetime, between now and Election Day, I want you to call in the show. Sean will put you through, and I want you to call me out live on air. I promise I will relent. I will repent. I will apologize. But I mean, it's not going to happen because I don't believe it. And I'm not going to say things I don't believe. I have never thought any of these elections in the last 20 years were the most important ever. Because, the closest I saw two candidates was that first one, George W. Bush and John Kerry. But even since then, there has never been a wide separation between the two major candidates, in my estimation. The number one thing I want to see is, hey, someone balance the budget. No one's even talked about it since 2000. It hadn't been an issue. So James, what would be the most important election of your lifetime? If I were to rank them, a midterm election is probably the most consequential one that you and I both had. The 1994 midterm election where Newt and the crew had the contract with America and they rode the wave to the first Republican majority in the House of Representatives in like 50, 60 years, since like the 30s, I think it was. But I say that was the most important election in our lifetime because that was the last time we balanced the budget. It was under that Congress. And they didn't do it out of, strong limited government principles. This was Team Red trying to cut off Bill Clinton at the knees, not approving any of his spending programs and cutting them under the guys. We're just balancing the budget. No, you're politically attacking him and cutting him off. But hey, if you're going to balance the budget, fine, do it. Be all nitpicky like that if you're going to. But nope, hadn't happened since then. The balanced budget only happened for 3 years. And what did we have there? We had amazing growth. We had amazing progress. We had the whole internet boom. That was when we solidified Google and some of these other giant tech companies, the Amazons and the Microsofts, and later on the Facebooks. And look, there is no guarantee that when the internet came around that America would be the house of all these giant multinational corporations that basically run the internet for the rest of the world. Silicon Valley could have happened in other places, but we had our crap together in the late 90s, and that was part of it. We didn't have all that deficit spending. We didn't have these big interest bills that are now eating up a giant chunk of our budget. We didn't spend 70% of our federal budget on social programs, taking $1 from you and giving it to some other person who didn't earn it. But I challenge you. I mean, I could open the phones, but no one can answer. What would be different about your life if John Kerry had beaten George W. Bush in 2004? Nothing. And aside from like abortion and maybe these tax cuts, which is something, there's not a whole lot of space between Trump and Biden. I don't know why y'all are both so hot and heavy that the other guy's the worst guy in the world. My guy's awesome. They look pretty close to the same. To any non-team wearing or jersey wearing observer, do either one of those dudes want to balance the budget? Do either one of those dudes want to end forever wars? We already saw Trump do 4 years of war, and now Biden's done 4 years. At least he closed Afghanistan, but he started up Ukraine. So, no, it's the same thing. Did the government get smaller under any of these guys, or did it grow through all of these dudes? Both of these dudes want more growth. Both of these guys. What's the point? This may be the least important election in American history because we know things aren't going to fall apart. We have two guys who have been president before. We know it's not going to be a total disaster. They've already had 4 years and the country didn't fall apart. Yeah, I'm leaning more toward that. This is the least important election in your lifetime. So don't get too worked up about it. We'll try again in 4 years. This is the James Show. I mean, do you want to argue with me on that one? I don't know where you could even argue. I mean, I'll open up the phones, but I don't think anyone's going to call. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. This is the James Show, News Talk 820, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I'm just mocking the idea that this could be the most important election in American history, and I doubt, seriously, strongly doubt, it's the most important election in our lifetime. I can make the case it's the least important election in your lifetime. But where did this come from? I'm not just pulling this out of the sky. I'm sick of turning on the TV or the radio and hearing Jonathan Karl, ABC. Listen to this.
Welcome to This Week. For as long as I've covered politics, politicians have said this will be the most important election of our lifetimes. They said that no matter how high or low the stakes actually were. Election Day 2024 is exactly 6 months from today. And this time, the divisions in our country are so vast and the choice so stark, there's little doubt this really is the most important election of our time. No more crying wolf. This is it.
Now, for real, I mean it this time. Not kidding around. I know I was kidding around before, and I said I was serious before, but I was kidding, and now I'm serious. It's not believable. No, you can't say that every time and still be believable. I'm just too much of a butthead. 800-288-9227. I have a memory, and I use it. Russ in Lake Worth, you're on the James Show. What do you think? Convince me this is an important election.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I'm a small government guy, and neither side is that way. But let me tell you, there's some real serious difference here. The way this alphabet soup of agencies in the executive branch is going to deal with us is vastly different. As soon as this administration came in, these agencies just became headed up by activists. They wanted to take the chains off of my roller shades. All right. Literally, what they want to do is they want to have power, and they're going to step on you. And whether or not we have 80,000 IRS agents extra is probably part of that too. So no, these guys are not going to balance the budget. And I said that before Trump was elected, and I voted for him twice. And I argued with the last guy that used to have this spot about that no, we weren't going to get to a balanced budget. But the way these agencies in the executive branch deal with us, the American people, is vastly different.
Yeah, but still, I don't think it's that different. Regulations still went
vastly different.
The government grew, right? Regulations grew. So yes, one guy wants to regulate and govern a little bit harder than the other guy, but the other guy still is okay with growing it. And we are far beyond the point to where this is acceptable. There is no acceptable governing philosophy in my mind other than the guy that wants to go up there and shrink things. Trump didn't go get rid of the Department of Education. Trump didn't get rid of the EPA. Trump didn't get rid of wide swaths of the government that deserve to die and go under, never to rise again.
All right. This election is about, now I'm not saying it's the most important one, but I'm saying this. I'm saying these agencies will just absolutely get more and more power, and I'm saying the deficit will be worse under the Democrats. And I'm saying if we want to at least go in the right direction, I'm a balanced budget guy. I'm a small government.
No, you're
guy.
not. You're not. You're not. You keep voting. You're voting for bigger government. You voted for bigger government twice. You voted for bigger deficits twice.
No,
you can't have it both ways.
No, I vote for the best I can do with what. Okay.
Okay. No. I like
is going to win.
I hear you. I don't agree with that argument, but I understand it. So you're not a crazy person. I understand why you do it. I just have far less faith than you do in what's. Let me take another caller because this guy looks like he might be fun. Patrick in DeSoto, and thank you by the way, Patrick in DeSoto. You're going to be my last caller. What do you think about this?
Well, I told your call screen I thought you were full of crap when there's not a beans for the difference between the two of them.
Right.
People or policy. In terms of regulation. Trump was bragging how many regulations he'd knocked down after Obama put all that stuff in, and Biden went back in and put all the regulations back in and issued all the executive orders. I mean,
okay, listen,
yeah.
Look, you guys, you all mean well. I can tell you're not coming at me from a bad faith angle here, but they are not that different. Listen, if think about this, the craziest thing that happened under Trump's term was the whole coronavirus, the thing that's still rocking us today. The reason why you have almost 4% inflation and the economy's terrible and McDonald's costs $15 for a number 2 is because all the extra deficit spending, all the shutdowns, the paycheck protection program, kicking you out of your church, shutting your kids' schools, both parties were cool with that. Donald Trump was told to do it by people who were on Team Blue, and he agreed to it. They're both guilty. What happened if Trump hadn't been in office? You think Hillary would have done the lockdowns? Absolutely. You think she would have spent another $4 trillion that we didn't have? Absolutely. Trump had the worst record of debt of any president before him, and the one before him, Obama. That's number 2 on the list. If Biden can stay in long enough, he's going to beat him. But we can't go from the guy that had the worst record in financial history and be like, well, I'm a limited government guy. I've got to vote for him again. That doesn't stand up. The real argument is what the caller before him said. I like him better than Biden. He's not as bad as Biden. Fine. I can't argue with that. I'm just saying that's not enough for me. That's why I am the way I am, and nobody agrees with me. And I'm in the tiny 2%, and I'm going to lose every election until the year I don't. Thank you very much for tolerating me, though, because I know a lot of you disagree with me. I see you people on hold. Look, all these people disagree. I love you. Call back tomorrow. We'll chat about this again. I love talking about this, though. I think we're making progress. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.